Welcome back. We are now on the home stretch. This is part 6 of 8, and today is about how to track improvements. How do you know if your new process that you worked so hard to design is actually having an impact? If you haven't watched the series so far, we have been looking at how to optimize processes. We've mapped them out and then used various models to identify opportunities for improvement. We prioritized them for impact, and then we have created solutions. So let's dive into tracking. You actually already have the answer to how do we track progress. Well, at least some of the answer. Cast your mind back to week 4. In week 4, we looked at each of the hypotheses that we'd built about our processes, i.e. the if-then statements, and we worked out their value to the business in terms of the sustainable profit model. If you haven't watched the series so far, this will be making no sense, so please go back to the beginning. When we worked out the value, which we did to rank their priorities, we looked at identifying hard numbers of value. Revenue or time saved or customers retained, whatever it may have been. So we have in fact already worked out something that's measurable, something that's meaningful because we linked it to the sustainable profit model, and measurable. So all we have to do is work out how do we measure it. So let's head back to our example to run this through. Okay, so back to our old friends, the dental website company. Back in week 4, we identified 3 hypotheses which we prioritized, working out the value. So let's have a look at the first one, which was if we responded faster to emails and booked more calls, then we would win a higher volume of jobs and therefore make more revenue. We worked out this was worth £260,000 a year to us because our average sale was £5,000. We were losing 1 call or 1 job a week because we lost 2 calls and because we weren't fast enough in responding, and our conversion rate was 50%. So there you go, already a bunch of metrics that we could easily-ish track. We need to be careful to separate out the different assumptions though. So if the £5,000 average revenue suddenly doubled or halved, just tracking revenue wouldn't tell us anything about whether the actions we've taken to ensure we're not losing calls had any impact. So we need to focus on the right things. What's the average response time to each email? That's something that we could easily create an automation to tell us. And when we get a no, could we track why? What's the reasons that we're not getting those calls? To be fair, tracking alone will also probably improve the metrics because people know they're being watched. Not saying that you don't want to track average revenue or conversion rate somewhere else in your KPIs, of course you do, but we're focused on the measures that have an impact on what we have done in our process streamlining. As you track progress, you can then see it's working, which is fantastic, or maybe it's not and you want to make tweaks. So you go back to the perception, decision, action, root causes that we looked at and create a different solution. When setting up your metrics, the most common 2 issues are 1, not tracking what you think you're tracking. So as I outlined in our example, tracking revenue when you need to track response times. And 2, tracking what is easy to track but not accurate, rather than tracking the thing that actually measures what you're looking at. With some lateral thinking, most things are trackable. You just need to figure it out. And that's it. Set up the tracking so it's automated as far as possible, and I really encourage you to write out the hypothesis next to the data. So a new person seeing email response times as a tracked metric could easily misinterpret, or I'll just hit reply, I'll come back to you shortly to get around the metric. It needs to be clear that it's in combination with not losing calls and why you care about this metric. I guess that's point 3 in the common issues I see when tracking. I love this stuff, so do get in touch if you want to brainstorm ideas. Happy to be a sounding board. We're nearly there. Next week we will look at documentation and then how to get people to come along on your journey with you, i.e. how to get people to stick to the new processes. Have you enjoyed this summer series so far? I've done this as a bit of an experiment. Do you think limited series newsletters are a good use of the LinkedIn newsletters? Would you approach it differently? Love to know your thoughts in the comments. See you next Thursday.